Bruchim Havoim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Dalid Amud Beis, 10 lines from the top, 3 lines before it begins getting wide on the Amud. The Pasuk states, Vayishkoin Kavod Hashem al Har Sinai. Hashem rested His glory on Har Sinai. Vayichaseu ha'onan sheishes yomim. And it covered it for 6 days. Vayikra el Moshe vayimashvi. HaKadosh Baruch Hu called out to Moshe on the 7th day, mitoich ha'anon, from amidst the cloud. The simple understanding of the verse is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu rested His Shechina on Har Sinai from Rosh Chodesh Sivan for a 6-day period. On the 7th day, He called out to Moshe and Klal Yisrael to give them the Aseres Hadibros. Only Hashem apportioned His glory to Moshe specifically, to Mechabed Moshe, and therefore He calls out Vayikra el Moshe. But indeed He was giving the Dibros to all of Klal Yisrael. And that's how Rabbi Akiva understands the Pasuk. Rabbi Yossi HaGalili argues and he says, no, the Pasuk is not referring to before the giving of the Aseres Hadibros, rather after the Aseres Hadibros. And therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Moshe Rabbeinu on the 7th day to then ascend the mountain so that Moshe Rabbeinu will then have a sequestering for 6 days, which will then begin the 40th-day period of time when he then gets the Luchos. Says the Gemara, B'mai kamifligi Rabbi Yossi HaGalili Rabbi Akiva. In what are the proofs that Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yossi HaGalili can then give in order to then bolster their position? Beplukta dahani tanoi. It's based on the following machloikis tanoim. The Tanya, it states in the following brayso. Beshisha b'chodesh nitna Torah liYisrael. The Tanna Kama says that the Torah, meaning the Aseres Hadibros, was given to Klal Yisrael on the 6th day of Sivan. Rabbi Yossi, not Rabbi Yossi, but Rabbi Yossi, Oimer, Beshiva Boy. Rabbi Yossi, the Tana, says that the Aseres Hadibros was given to Klal Yisrael on the 7th day of Sivan. Says the Gemara to explain. Man de Omar Beshisha, the one who says that it was given on the 6th day of Sivan, Beshisha Nitna or Beshiva Allah. On the 6th day of Sivan it was given. On the 7th day, Moshe Rabbeinu went up, he ascended the mountain. Manda Omar Beshiva Nitno Beshiva Allah. The other opinion that says on the 7th day of Sivan is when the Aseres Hadibros was given. It was the 7th day that Moshe Rabbeinu went up on the mountain. That means that both agree that he went up on the 7th day. Only the Machloikis, Tanna Kama and Rabbi Yossi, was that the Aseres Hadibros was given on the 6th day or on the 7th day. Now the Gemara applies this to the machlokes between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yossi HaGalili, how they explain the pasuk that we mentioned before. Rabbi Yossi HaGalili sover lo Tanna Kama. Rabbi Yossi HaGalili, he holds like the Tanna Kama that the Torah, meaning the Aseres Hadibros, was given on Vav Sivan. Do'omar b'shisha b'chodesh nitna Torah. As a result of having to hold this, then Hilkach, therefore, he must learn the pasuk as we explained. This that 6 days required the cloud to cover up Moshe, to sequester him, must have taken place after the giving of Aseres Hadibros. Vayishkoin kvod Hashem al Har Sinai v'yichaseu ha'onon sheishes yomim leMoshe. That cloud which covered for 6 days was covering Moshe in order to sequester him. Vayikra el Moshe vayimashvi, whereby Hashem called to Moshe on the 7th day to then come away, to go out of the cloud that was covering him up. Lekibule shar Torah, to receive the rest of the Torah, that means the Torah and the Luchos. Because if you want to say that indeed we're talking about it happened already from Rosh Chodesh, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu covered with His cloud of glory, Vayichasei ha'onon lehar, and He covered the entire mountain from Rosh Chodesh, the way Rabbi Akiva is learning. Then Vayikra el Moshe b'imashvi likuvule Aseres Hadibros. Then Hashem called to Moshe on the 7th day to receive the Aseres Hadibros together with Klal Yisrael. Then asks Rabbi Yossi HaGalili, how could that be? Hakabilu lahu mishisha. If they accepted the Torah, that means they received the Aseret Dibros on the 6th day. Then it means the cloud was removed from already the 6th day. And therefore, why would it be then that Hashem calls to Moshe and Klai Yisrael on the 7th day? Elamai, from the fact that Hashem gave, again, Rabbi Yosef Glili maintains the Aseret Dibros on the 6th day, perforce that which it states Hashem's cloud encompassed Moshe Rabbeinu after the Aseret Dibros, B'Yom HaShvi, and then that was for a 6-day period, which began the 40 days of his time on the mountain receiving the Luchos. Rabbi Akiva sover like Rabbi Yossi, whereas Rabbi Akiva holds like Rabbi Yossi, the Omar, Veshiva b'chodesh nina Torah Yisrael. It was the 7th day of Sivan that Hashem gave the Aseret Dibros to Klal Yisrael. As we explained before, that Rabbi Akiva then explains the pasuk as saying that for 6 days the cloud was on the mountain, not just on Moshe Rabbeinu, but on the mountain, and therefore was not coming to then sequester Moshe. In fact, for Moshe Chodesh, those 6 days Moshe went up and down the mountain, so it wasn't sequestering him. And then on the 7th day, Hashem called to Moshe and Klal Yisrael to give the Aseret Dibros. So Gemara explains now. Bishlam Rabbi Akiva, according to Rabbi Akiva's Shita, that we just explained, that the 7th day is when the Aseret Dibros was given, and all of that cloud that was governing the mountain was from Rosh Chodesh Sivan. Then according to Rabbi Akiva, we understand that on the 17th of Tammuz, which is what the Mishnah at the end of Maseches Tainus says, the Luchos was broken on the 17th of Tammuz. Because Esrim Va'arba de Sivan, you have 24 days left in Sivan, after, indeed, the Luchos were given. The Shitzar, the Tammuz, and 17 days of Tammuz, Melulahu Arba Yomin, the Hava Bahar, whereby that would complete the 40 days that Moshe Rabbeinu was on the mountain, receiving the Luchos. Ubeshivasar betamuz nochis, on the 17th he went down. Ve'osa v'thavrinu leluchos, and he then smashed the luchos when he saw the egel. So that's all very good according to the cheshbon of Rabbi Akiva. But ask the Gemara, according to Rabbi Yossi HaGalili, who explains that all of this took place 6 days after the giving of the Aseret Dibros. El Rabbi Yossi HaGalili da'omar shisha aprisha, there was 6 days of Moshe Rabbeinu being sequestered. That was only from the 7th day of Sivan. Then v'arboin dahar, whereby there was another 40 days on the mountain. Ad esrim v'tlas b'tamuz lo izbar luchos. It was only until the 23rd of Tammuz that Moshe Rabbeinu came down and broke the luchos, because you have to add 6 days from the 17th of Tammuz. So it would come out to be not that he broke it on the 17th, but on the 23rd. Answers the Gemara, Rabbi Yossi HaGalili, Arboin Dahar Bahadi Shisha Deprisha. Those 6 days that Moshe Rabbeinu was sequestered began the 40, were included, and began the 40 days that he was up on the mountain. So therefore the same cheshbon takes place. He comes down on the 17th of Tammuz and he breaks the luchos. Omar Ma, the Gemara brings back a previous statement, Vayikra el Moshe. Hashem calls to Moshe, Moshe v'kol Yisrael oimdim. It's referring to not only to Moshe, that's how Rabbi Akiva learned, it's actually calling to Moshe and all of Klai who are standing by the mountain. Messiah le Rabbi Elazar. This is going to support Rabbi Elazar. Don't Rabbi Elazar. Vayikra el Moshe, Moshe v'kol Yisrael oimdim. All of Klai Yisrael together with Moshe were standing. V'lo ba because of el l'chalik loy kvoid leMoshe. All Hashem was calling to Moshe was only to give him extra kavod, but indeed he was giving the Aseret Dibros to both Klal Yisrael and Moshe. Meisvei, the Gemara asks, Kol loy. It could have said Kol loy, instead it says Kol elov. The pasuk that I'll read to you states, in the middle of the pasuk, Kol elov, Gvoy Moshe el oil moyed, Moshe shall come to the oil moyed, ledaber itoi. Vayishma es hakol midaber lov, to listen to the voice that Hashem is speaking to him. Me'al hakapoires, from on top of the kapoires, asher al Aaron, which was on top of the Aaron hakodesh, haedus, mi ben shnei akruvim, vayidaber elov. So it states over here, vayikol elov instead of kol loy. So Gemara says, Moshe Shama, because Yisrael lo shamu. From here, it's mashma because it says kol elov that only Moshe heard, and not Klal Yisrael. And yet you say Rabbi Elazar, and so does Rabbi Akiva explain that all of Klal Yisrael together with Moshe heard. So how does that fit with this verse that says kol elov only Moshe heard? Gemara says lokasha b'sinai haba oil moed. This puzzle we said kol elov is talking about oil moed. Once the Mishkan was built, only the voice was heard by Moshe Rabbeinu, but not by Klal Yisrael. But at Har Sinai, everybody, including Klal Yisrael, heard the voice of Hashem. Alternatively, you can say loy kasha, because ha b'kriya ha b'dibur. That which says kol elov, only Moshe heard. There, it's talking about the dibur, but the kriya at Har Sinai, that everybody, which was much louder, heard. The Gemara says, Reb Zikra Brami Kroi Kamed Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Zikra, he took two psukim that seemed to be contradictory, and he said it before Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar Ramu. Some say that indeed it was Rabbi Zikra that was Rami the pasuk by Rabbi Elazar. Ksiv, it says in the pasuk, Lo Yochol Moshe Lavoi El Oil Moed. Moshe was not able to come to the Oil Moed, the tent of meeting. Ki shochan alav he'onan. The Torah says why? Because Hashem's cloud rested on the oil moed. So Moshe Rabbeinu didn't have the reshus to come. The Ksiv, it says in another verse, Vayavoy Moshe b'toich ha'oil, that he did come inside the oil. He did come inside of the anan, inside of the cloud. So there's a stira, on the contradiction. On the one hand, it says he couldn't enter the Oil because the cloud was there. On the other hand, it says he entered inside the cloud. Answers the Gemara, Melami just teaches Shetafsu HaKadosh Baruch Hu Moshe ve'eviu be'anan. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu grabbed Kaviyachal Moshe and he put him inside of the anan. That's right. Moshe did not have reshus to come, but in this instance, HaKadosh Baruch Hu took him and he put him inside the anan. The Bei Rabbi Shmuel Tano, in the Beis HaMedrash Rabbi Shmuel was taught, Nemar kan betoich. It says over here betoich that Moshe Rabbeinu indeed came betoich ha'onon. V'nemar lahalon betoich. It also says later on betoich. Vayavo b'nei Yisrael betoich hayom. That Klal Yisrael came inside of the yam betoich hayam at Kriyas Yam Suf. Ma lahalan shvil d'chsiv hamayim lohem choimo. Just as when it comes to Kriyas Yam Suf, Hashem made a shvil, he made a pathway. As it says, he made a choimo, they had on their right side and on their left side, afkan shvil. So too, over here, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a shvil through the anan. So it's not a contradiction. The pasuk that is quoted now states, in the very beginning of Sefer Vayikra el Moshe, Hashem calls to Moshe, Vayidaber Hashem Elov, Hashem speaks to him, to Moshe, May oil moed lemor, from the oil moed lemor to say. The Gemara now darshans this pasuk. Vayikra el Moshe vayidaber. Hashem calls to Moshe vayidaber and he speaks. Lama hiktim kriya l'dibur. Why does it just say Hashem speaks to Moshe? Why does it vayikra? He calls Moshe. Linda Torah derech eretz. This is teaching us derech eretz. Shelo yoymar adam dover lechaveiro ela im kein kareyu. A person should not say anything to his friend before he calls him. Messiah leile Rabbi Chanino. This comes to support Rabbi Chanino. Dom Rabbi Chanino lo yomar adam dover lechaveiroi ela im kein kareyu. A person should not say anything to his friend until he calls him first. Leimar. Why does it say at the end of the pasuk Leimor? What does it come to mean? Omer Rabbi Musia bar Braid Rabbi Musia Masya Mishem Rabbi Musia Rabbo Minayin leoimer dover lechaveiroi shehu bebal yoimar asher maloi leich emor. From where do we know that if you want to say something to your friend, that is something that you cannot say because you said to him in a private fashion? He said to you in a private fashion that you should not say it to somebody else unless he says to you leich emor. Shenemar says vayidaber Hashem el elov may oil moed leimor. The word leimor really is a contraction, the Gemara is learning, of two words. Loy emor, do not say it. Therefore, just like Moshe Rabbeinu was told in a private fashion by Hashem, therefore he has to be given reshus to say it. And therefore also we learn over here, if a person was given a private type of dibur, speech by somebody else, between he and somebody else. He's not to tell it to somebody else, unless that person says, go ahead, lech emor, go and say it to somebody else. He gives him permission.